it as short as I can so we can then get out of the heat. But really appreciate everyone being here and just looking around, seeing people of all ages, races, genders, people from all different neighborhoods. It really is encouraging and inspiring, and shows that this issue is bigger than any one group, any one person, but it really is about humanity as a whole. And I want to thank just everybody that has spoken so far and acknowledge my colleagues in the Montgomery delegation, Representative Kenyatta Hassel and Representative Penny McClammy. We have an incredible Montgomery delegation, and we're working incredibly well together and striving to do everything we can to make Montgomery better. And I'm so grateful that they're here to show their support. I'm grateful to everyone else in the delegation for everything they do and everything we'll continue to do together to help move Montgomery forward in an even better direction. But today specifically is about community safety and gun violence. And we are here in Vaughn Park very intentionally because this is at the geographic center of District 74. The district goes equally north from here as far as Chisholm, and then equally south all the way down to the Spring Valley area, and then many neighborhoods in between. So I picked this particular area and this park to show, because this issue is bigger than any one neighborhood. It's about every single part of District 74. It's certainly about all of Montgomery and about all of Alabama. So that is why we are here in this park in particular. But I know in looking out, I see people from so many neighborhoods in District 74 and I'm not, excuse me if I leave any out, but I see Vaughn Meadows, Green Acres, Dalraida, County Downs, Woodley Park, Spring Valley, Vista View, Brentwood, Richfield. There's so many incredible neighborhoods, Hillwood, and really, really glad to see people from all those neighborhoods here today. One thing that I heard, and many of the people that walked countless hours with me knocking on doors during the campaign, through heat like this and through rain and all sorts of weather, the thing that we overwhelmingly heard was that residents were concerned about public safety and they were concerned about gun violence. Again, it didn't matter what neighborhood they were in. It didn't matter race, age, or background. It didn't matter if it was a more working class neighborhood or a more affluent one. That was what we heard overwhelmingly. And the cry that we heard was to try to do something, right? Knowing that we can't make everything right or fix everything, but at least get in there and try to do something. So that's why we're here today, not just as a reaction or response to Dadeville, but because that was the call and cry of residents in District 74, that they wanted action and they wanted this issue addressed. I know there are many out here today and that are either tuning in or not here that have been working for years and decades on this particular issue, and I certainly want to acknowledge that people have been leading that fight and working on this for so long. So I appreciate you, and I am just one of a large group and commitment to trying to do this. Something I want to make abundantly clear before I get into the specifics of the bills that I'm proposing are that none of this, and I will say it over and over again, none of this infringes on the Second Amendment. As some of you know, I'm a lawyer by trade, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for the Constitution and every single right that's in there. So anybody that says that this is an infringement, it's not, right? This is a reasonable, proven approach that is constitutional to try to just make things a little bit safer and better and to save lives. These laws also will not address every aspect of gun violence, but they are a starting place and point to at least get the ball rolling on trying to do the right thing. And I'm certainly open to working with my colleagues of both parties and across the aisle to make sure that we even introduce laws beyond this to address the issue. So again, everything today is not exhaustive, but it is a starting point where there should be, and I'm encouraged that there will be, bipartisan support to pass these. I also recognize that no one law or 1,000 laws can stop every act of gun violence. But as a lawmaker, I have a moral duty to try and pass laws. Yes, there is a need for prayer. There is a need for addressing issues starting in the home and, of course, individual responsibility. But that doesn't mean that we can't try to do things and implement measures that have worked in other cities and states. Of course, it takes an entire village to raise our children and to stop gun violence, and together with everyone here and throughout Montgomery and throughout the district, we certainly can continue to do everything that we can. So now I want to get into the specifics of the bills that I'll be introducing. The first one, and I know there are many in here that have been raising this for a long time, and I'm glad to see that it is getting a lot of attention to be in the state budget, but I will continue to champion and advocate for a line item in the budget to fund hospital-based violence intervention programs. These programs are located in trauma centers and emergency departments. They engage patients while they are still in the hospital, often just hours after a violent injury, and this reduces the chance of retaliation and violent injury after caseworkers and services, such as mental health services, have helped those who have come in from an act of gun violence. Second, we are going to create a new violence prevention grant through ADECA, which is a state agency in which cities and counties can apply for funds to support their evidence-based strategies to reduce gun violence, especially amongst young people. Birmingham has a promising model of having prevention coaches and curriculum in schools, and Montgomery, along with Rotias, who's here, has launched a great effort under Mayor Reed and others to pursue those similar efforts in schools and in the community, not just to respond to crime, but work in our schools, community centers, and more to reach young people and teach them emotional intelligence and ways to resolve conflict before it happens. And I'm glad that on the state level we can pursue and try to implement even more funding to support these great programs. Third, I will introduce a bill to make it illegal to sell or possess ghost guns. These have proliferated our streets and communities in which people circumvent federal gun laws that require a serial number on a weapon. People are ordering parts online through the click of a button, or they are printing them through 3D printers. This allows them to avoid background checks and easily transfer the guns around to others to use in a crime. Without a serial number, it is hard, if not impossible, for law enforcement to trace and track those who have used these weapons in a crime. So this law will simply make sure that Alabama has a law that is in uniformity and complies with federal law, that you must have a serial number on a gun. Fourth, I've heard loudly and clearly from district attorneys, the Big Ten mayors, community members, and law enforcement about block switches, bump stocks, and other devices that often are the size of a cell phone charger that are then attached to the end of a handgun that turn it into an automatic killing machine that sprays bullets, wreaking havoc on communities. Right now, there is no state law in which prosecutors can use to charge those who are found with these. So this law will equip DAs with another tool to hold those accountable who indiscriminately shoot bullets that can quickly and lethally terrorize communities and public gatherings. My bill is similar to one introduced by a fellow member, Republican Representative Randy Wood, who is a law enforcement officer. We have some slight differences in the technical language, of which mine just aligns more with federal law. So I look forward, though, to reconciling those differences and working with him to pass this in a bipartisan manner. Fifth, and I know this one has gotten a lot of attention, and I'm very glad and inspired by Senator Marika Coleman in the Alabama Senate, who introduced a red flag law. I am similarly introducing one on the House side, in which a person who poses an immediate and present danger of causing personal injury to themselves or a family member or the public, there can be a court order in which a family member, a law enforcement, or a teacher can go to a court, and there will be due process. So again, it will not interfere with the Second Amendment right, but where for a period of time there will be essentially a cooling off where that person cannot access a gun, and that way they can get the mental health services and support they need while they are in a not particularly good place. These have proven to work in other places. Congress passed funding for them. That money is on the table. So Alabama should pass a red flag law and go ahead and take advantage of the federal funds that are out there to implement those in communities all throughout the state. 6, I'm introducing what is called a voluntary do not sell list law. This is one in which individuals who know that they are going through a particularly tough time, whether it's because of issues at work or family or health, and they feel that they want to take the step themselves to not have a gun or not be able to buy a gun, they can go ahead and put themselves on this list. A heavily red Republican state, Utah, recently enacted one of these, and there is no reason why in Alabama we should not enact it as well. And I'm grateful to my colleague, Representative Neil Rafferty from Birmingham, who introduced this last year and has asked me to then carry it and work on it this year. Seventh, working closely with the Department of Mental Health, we will better support police departments that are already stretched thin financially and through resources by having a process in which they can hire mental health responders to be embedded within the police department. This would free up officers to respond more to violent crimes and have mental health responders appropriately respond at times when it is a true and only mental health issue. This particularly came up when George Floyd was murdered several years ago, and just because that was a few years ago and we haven't implemented those yet doesn't mean we should try to do that now. And again, this will not at all take away from what police do. It will be a way to add on and free them up to address more violent crime. Eighth, and the last one that I will discuss today, is working with the Department of Education to have a mental health program in which there will be mental health counselors in our schools, not just responding when there is a tragedy or a traumatic event, but there beforehand to work with young people who are going through, as it was mentioned before, an incredibly difficult time. With all of that said, I am not naive and I have no illusions that it is very difficult to pass a bill, and any bill in particular has a long and complex and uphill battle to get through. So today is just a starting point to let the community know what we are trying to do, knowing that there is a long process of going through multiple committees and the full House and then the full Senate and then onto the governor. So all of these we can start with and continue, whether it's this year, next year, or for many years to come, keep fighting and advocating until they are implemented. I will wrap up by saying this, that I cannot emphasize enough that all of these proposals transcend party, and they should receive bipartisan support, and everything from mental health responders to the Glock switches to so much more are things that are not about Democrat or Republican, but again, they are about doing the right thing for communities. And I will emphasize that none of these laws alone will stop every act of gun violence, but we have a duty to try. So I ask everyone out there and who's listening, let's continue to come together for this. Let's continue to stand up and speak out and continue to ask all of the legislature, all the legislators to do what they can. So thank you all for being here. Again, this is about saving lives and protecting our communities, and we will continue to do everything that we can. Thank you so much. And now if there are any questions for any of us.